We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide.
Details are emerging surrounding the accused United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione, who remains in police custody after allegedly gunning down Brian Thompson last week in Midtown Manhattan. The 26-year-old Ivy League graduate who was arrested after a multi-day manhunt is now at the center of a complex investigation that reveals a troubling mindset and maybe a calculated plan. We're going to be breaking down the top latest details about Luigi Mangione. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The circumstances surrounding the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson continue to captivate the nation. Every day we are learning more about Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old accused killer who is behind bars right now in a Pennsylvania jail awaiting extradition to New York to face additional charges, including second-degree murder. Now, the shocking events surrounding this case have just raised questions. They've raised questions about mental health, how societal grievances may lead to violence, how this killing took place. And as investigators continue to piece together the timeline and the motivations behind this alleged killer's actions, we are going to break down the top key details that we know so far about Luigi Mangione. And just for a refresher to get us caught up to speed, here's some quick background. So last week, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down outside of the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan while he was on his way to an investors meeting. Surveillance images captured the killer wearing a hood and mask, ambushing Thompson before shooting him from behind, ultimately killing him. Now, the killer then hopped on a bicycle towards Central Park, where he then hailed a taxi and later got on a bus headed out of Manhattan. And by the way, one of the more bizarre aspects of this, as reported by CNN and seen on surveillance footage, it appears that the shooter was on the phone, possibly speaking to someone at 6:30 a.m., so about 15 minutes before the shooting. Who was the person that he was speaking to, and why was he speaking to that person? And by the way, I will also tell you, still one of the unanswered questions is how the shooter, the killer, potentially Luigi Mangione, knew that Brian Thompson was going to be walking down that street at that precise moment. Something to think about. Now, after a manhunt that lasted several days, Luigi Mangione was spotted in a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after a person recognized him from the surveillance images that were released by police. And he was arrested on gun charges in Pennsylvania because, after all, he was reportedly found with a ghost gun and a silencer and a fake ID. Now, Mangione made his first court appearance earlier this week, and that is when we also know he was hit with more charges, this time out of Manhattan, including, as I mentioned, that second-degree murder charge. But it turns out he is apparently fighting his extradition back to New York, where he will face those charges. And this is where we are right now. So we want to jump into the latest details in this case, and we want to start with the forensic evidence. This is huge because we now have official confirmation that police were able to link significant forensic evidence to Luigi Mangione, because NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch announced that fingerprints found on a water bottle and this protein candy bar near where the crime scene was matched those taken from Mangione when he was booked into jail in Pennsylvania. Additionally, the gun found in Mangione's possession during his arrest, it has been matched to shell casings recovered from the shooting scene. Again, this is according to Tisch. And Tisch actually gave us a brief update on this at an unrelated news conference yesterday on Staten Island.
We got the gun in question back from Pennsylvania. It's now at the NYPD crime lab. We were able to match that gun to the 3 shell casings that we found in Midtown at the scene of the homicide. We were also able at our crime lab to match the person of interest's fingerprints with fingerprints that we found on both the water bottle and the Kind bar near the scene of the homicide in Midtown.
By the way, as you can see from a story like this, the world is just so scary. It really is. And I am sure you ask yourself sometimes, how can I protect myself? Or how about this? How about protecting your home, of all places, right? Well, I will tell you what, I didn't even know this, but apparently home title fraud rampant right now. Yeah, I met with the people over at Home Title Lock. This is our amazing partner and sponsor. They freaked me out. So this is an example of a fraudulent quitclaim deed. It got filled out with my information, a forged signature, a fake notary seal. Not only could my property just get transferred behind my back, but the scammers, they go after the equity. They take out loans using your home as collateral. They do all this, they disappear, they leave you with a legal and financial nightmare. But that is where Home Title Lock comes in to give you peace of mind, especially with their triple lock protection. That gets you 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. So to protect your home, go to HometitleLock.com/sidebar. Use our promo code sidebar. You get a 30-day free trial of their triple lock protection and a free title history report to make sure you aren't already a victim. Now remember, when Mangione allegedly took off from the scene, he dropped a number of items that police have confiscated. The water bottle, the energy bar wrapper, shell casings, a backpack that was found in Central Park. And when police initially confiscated these dropped items, their first round of testing, based on reporting, didn't yield any results. So this was prior to Mangione's arrest, when they didn't have his fingerprints to reference. And you match that up to the surveillance photos, right? The surveillance photos of the suspect at this hostel, unmasked. You match it up to the surveillance photos of this suspect in the Starbucks right before the shooting, on the street, in the taxi cab. It's all adding up to build a case. Talking about the weapon. The weapon that was found on Mangione has been described as a 3D printed ghost gun that was equipped with a suppressor and loaded with live ammunition. Prior to this latest forensic discovery, we knew that the casings that were recovered had the words deny, depose, and delay written on them, which raised speculation about the suspect's motive being linked to some kind of resentment with the healthcare industry because of their resemblance to a book that criticized insurance companies. But now we seemingly have the positive identification that those casings matched Mangione's specific weapon, or at least that is what the allegations are. Now, as for Mangione's capture inside of that Altoona McDonald's, we learned recently a bit more information. So a man who was allegedly inside the McDonald's that day, who's only identifying himself as Larry, told multiple outlets that an employee called police after taking Mangione's order, noting that she had spotted this likeness to the surveillance photos based on his eyes and his eyebrows. And this guy, Larry, also said that his friend had made a comment to him along the lines of, "That looks like the shooter from New York." And apparently he told Fox News that the employee heard this friend make this comment inside of the restaurant too, and ultimately we know for certain that it was the McDonald's employee who called police. Now, I want to go to the arraignment and the extradition hearings in this case out in Pennsylvania, because this was super interesting. So up until his first court appearance, Mangione stayed relatively silent. At the time of his arrest, police said he appeared to be visibly shaking when asked if he had been to New York, and one officer noted that the arrest was peaceful. But when Mangione was brought in for his extradition hearing, he appeared to have some kind of outburst.
Oh my God, that's completely out of touch, and it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Now, it's not clear what exactly or specifically he was reacting to, but prior to this, at his arraignment hearing, he contested 3 pieces of evidence presented by prosecutors in open court: his backpack, the wad of cash that was found inside it, and the blue medical mask that he was apparently wearing when he was arrested. As for the bag and the money, prosecutors argued that Mangione was carrying around approximately $10,000 in cash inside of a bag known as a Faraday bag, which apparently blocks cell phone signals. This was all brought forth to suggest criminal sophistication on his part. According to CNN, this is what Mangione said in court in response. "I'd like to correct 2 things. I don't know where any of that money came from. I'm not sure if it was planted. And also, that bag was waterproof. So I don't know about criminal sophistication." Additionally, the New York Times reported that when the topic of his mask came up, he tried to say that he had purchased the mask, but his lawyer apparently shushed him. Also, going to that extradition hearing, which happened later on, Mangione was denied bail, and it appears that he is going to fight extradition back to New York. Remember, he's facing that second-degree murder charge and, additionally, gun possession and forgery charges, all out in New York. His lawyer, Thomas Dickey, explained to the press following the extradition why he is contesting it.
I haven't seen any evidence that says that he's the shooter, so I've seen zero evidence at this point.
To be clear about something, though, at the time, Dickey claimed he hadn't seen any evidence that Mangione was the shooter, but we weren't aware of the positive identification or the alleged positive identification that was made of Mangione from both the fingerprints and the shell casings. But essentially, the main reason behind fighting this, according to his attorney, is to get more time to look at the evidence that's coming out of New York. As of yesterday morning, Dickey stood by his statement that he had not seen evidence linking his client to the crime. Again, this is before the positive identifications that I made, but this is what he told to Good Morning America, that he was in the process of reviewing everything. And according to the New York Times, Mangione's decision to fight the extradition could potentially grant him an evidentiary hearing, where apparently the Manhattan DA's office would have to present a witness to support the request for extradition. And this is a process that incorporates both the governor of New York and the Manhattan district attorney, to be clear about that. But now I want to get into the why behind this crime, because investigators are looking into this, and there might be a belief that Mangione's motive could be rooted in personal pain and the health struggles that he was facing, and more importantly, this deep-seated animosity towards the healthcare industry. This may have all started, though, with a debilitating back injury that Mangione had been suffering. So it's been reported by NBC that Mangione was suffering from back pain since he was a child, but his condition was apparently aggravated by surfing. This is according to Yahoo News. And I should also say, this is also according to a now deleted Reddit account with the handle Mr. Cactus. This was reviewed by NBC News, and it's believed that could be Mangione's account. And these archive posts that were reviewed appear to be consistent with key events in Mangione's life, including his frustrations with his condition and the healthcare system. And NBC actually showed some of the posts to friends who knew Mangione, and they recognized some of the events mentioned and the life events discussed. So it gives it a little bit more credence that this account could in fact belong to Mangione. Now, one thing that sticks out about this account is that it was particularly active in discussions related to a specific spinal condition. You know, in one post from April, the user shared that his condition worsened to the point where it was, quote, felt every day. In October, there was another post that shared advice for other sufferers, saying constant pain means something is wrong. Mangione's back issues seemed to intensify after a surfing incident in 2022, where he apparently slipped and aggravated this condition. This was posted about on Reddit, where the user said that his right leg shut down for a week and caused issues with his hip, including muscle twitching and numbness. We actually spoke with a former roommate of Mangione, RJ Martin, who told us what Mangione was experiencing when he was living with him.
My understanding is it was either an injury or some sort of pre-existing condition that he'd had before he moved to Hawaii, and that his spine had a misalignment, like forward and back. And I think he'd showed me the x-rays of that too. So his nervous cord was being pressed, and I believe his discs. It was one of those interesting injuries where, you know, one day he could perhaps be athletic and do something, and then the next day just immobile and stuck in bed.
Going to 2023, this Reddit user, believed to be Mangione, mentioned undergoing spinal fusion surgery to address this worsening condition, a procedure that involves connecting vertebrae with screws and rods to alleviate that pressure. That post read, "Yeah, I had L5-S1 spinal fusion 6 months ago after 1.5 years of failed conservative treatment. Within 7 days of the fusion, I was on 0 pain meds. That's probably faster than most folks, but my point is that your body isn't supposed to be in pain and needs meds. Even after getting my back sliced open and my spine drilled into, I wasn't in much pain." And Martin had also told us about this procedure of Mangione's.
I checked in with him maybe about a year ago, a little over a year ago, less than a year ago, asking how the surgery went. And we had some text communications. He sent me some images of his x-rays post-surgery. And it's those kinds of images, I think some of them are already out there, that just make you cringe. You know, you look at 3-4 inch screws into somebody's spine. And
so why is the back pain so important? Well, experts in pain science have pointed out that chronic back pain can negatively affect not only just physical health, but also mental health, their well-being. This board-certified neurosurgeon, TikToker, who goes by Lady Spine Doc, offered her expert opinion on how a person in chronic pain may have been driven to take someone else's life.
This was supposedly his banner photo on X, which leads us to think that this potentially could represent his own spine x-ray. I have also read that he was a wrestler, and wrestlers are subject to hyperextension injuries, which can lead to pars defects. That's where you have instability in your spine that would necessitate a spinal fusion, and this is most common in young men at L5 and S1. This x-ray does represent an L5-S1 spondylolisthesis, which could potentially correlate to an injury that he has sustained and potentially a surgery that he has had that could have led him to have chronic pain. You can imagine someone that lives in chronic daily pain, the pain that they suffer, and if they are denied the anger that goes into their suffering. I'm not saying that this justifies what he did, but I am saying it provides a good insight into what may be the driving motive for this crime.
Now, of course, this is just an opinion here, right? Yes, this is a medical expert, but it's an opinion as to what Mangione might have been experiencing and the resulting ill will he might have felt towards health insurance. But what this does do is lead us into another part of this investigation, the why. And that leads me into a critical piece of evidence in this case. This notebook that was discovered during Mangione's arrest in Pennsylvania. Because inside that notebook is a chilling passage that also appears to describe ill feelings toward healthcare and even a CEO. So according to two law enforcement officials who were interviewed by the New York Times, one section of this notebook reads, "What do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence." The notebook provides a chilling insight into this mindset leading up to, again, what could be this murder, revealing there was a consideration to use a bomb, seemingly to carry out the attack on Thompson, but then the author later decided against that to seemingly avoid harming innocents. Now, included with the notebook when he was arrested is what is being referred to as a manifesto, which was apparently leaked online by independent journalist Ken Klippenstein. And according to TMZ, this text was confirmed by law enforcement sources. And part of this reads, "I do apologize for any strife of trauma, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming." A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is the, and the word is indecipherable there, largest company in the U.S. by market cap behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No, the reality is these, and again, indecipherable word, have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed, Rosenthal more decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It's not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. Now, I want to back up a bit and talk more about the timeline revolving around the back surgery. So, as Mangione was recovering, he was also reportedly isolating from the social scene. We've talked about how concerned friends tried to reach out to him on social media, even how his own family was looking for him. And this leads to another key detail in this story, one that really comes with more unanswered questions. Luigi Mangione's mother allegedly filed a missing persons report with the San Francisco Police Department before the shooting. The timing on that is odd enough, but even more odd was the fact that she filed the report in November when she and the rest of the family had not heard from him seemingly for a couple of months before that. And we know this because a friend of Mangione, Aaron Cranston, revealed to the New York Times that he had received a message indicating that Mangione's family was looking for him. And this, of course, as I said, leaves a lot of questions. Why was the report filed in San Francisco? Will the timing being just before the shooting reveal anything about what his family potentially knew? And how did he just fall off the radar for months after his surgery without any serious actions being taken to try to find and locate him? Now, Mangione's cousin, Nino Mangione, issued a statement on behalf of the family, and it made it clear that they didn't know anything prior to the news of the arrest, saying, "We cannot comment on news reports regarding Luigi Mangione. We only know what we have read in the media. Our family is shocked and devastated by Luigi's arrest. We offer our prayers to the family of Brian Thompson, and we ask people to pray for all involved." And of course, we know during this time of isolation that his online activity seemed to reveal these odd ideological leanings, particularly this Goodreads review from earlier this year of the manifesto of the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, in which Mangione seemingly gave the book a 4-star rating. So as investigators work to iron out the motive here, only time will tell if this is truly a descent into ideological extremism that led to this accused killer to carry out this assassination. But for now, Luigi Mangione sits behind bars in a Blair County jail awaiting his extradition. We are at the beginning of the legal process. He is, of course, innocent until proven guilty, and we will continue to follow updates for you as they develop. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.